As I was born from the semen of Vyasadeva, I want you to have children through the semen of some great rishi. Kunti was ever agreeable to the desires of her husband and spoke to him in the following words. When I was a young girl, I used to wait upon guests and satisfy them to their heart's content. One day a Brahmana named Ravasamuni came to my father's palace. By my services, the Brahmana was satisfied and wanted to give me a benediction. He bestowed upon me a mantra by which I could call any demigod from the upper planetary systems. He said to me, with this mantra you may call any one of the demigods, and they will abide by your will. Any demigod who you call will beget children by you. If you command me, I shall call for any demigod you wish. O foremost of all truthful men, tell me which of the demigods I should summon. Hearing the words of Kunti with great joy, Pandu replied, O most fortunate Kunti, summon the demigod of justice Yamaraj. He is most pious and a great devotee of Lord Vishnu. Indeed, he is one of the Mahajans and will not pollute our dynasty with sin. Kunti agreed with the order of Pandu and prepared to call the demigod Yamaraj. Kunti repeated the incantation that Durvasamuni had taught her, and she called for the demigod Yamaraj. Through him she begot a child that was equal to the great Yamaraj himself. When the child was born, there was a celestial voice from the sky that announced, This child shall be the best among men, the foremost of those that are virtuous. He will be known as an intimate associate of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu. Endowed with great prowess and truthful in speech, he will become the ruler of this earth. This first son of Pandu will be known as Yudhisthira, and he will be a famous king throughout the three worlds. Pandu was overjoyed by the birth of such a pious son, and he told Kunti, The wise have declared that a Kshatriya must be endowed with physical strength, otherwise he is no Kshatriya. Therefore call for Vayu, the mighty demigod of the wind. Kunti then called for the demigod Vayu, and coming before her he said, O Kunti, please tell me why you have called me. Smiling with modesty, she said, Please give me, O best of the celestials, a child endowed with great strength and large limbs, and capable of humiliating the pride of everyone. Vayu then begot a child by her that was the foremost of all who were endowed with strength. When the child was born, a voice from the sky said, This child shall be known as Bhima, and by his strength he will conquer over all persons. On this same day that Bhima took birth, Duryodhana was also born. One day shortly after Bhima's birth, Kunti was holding him in her lap, the child having fallen asleep. Suddenly a lion roared, and Kunti rose unconscious that the child was on her lap. The child fell down the side of a mountain and crushed the stone upon which he fell into powder. The child was not hurt in the least, and Pandu was amazed at the bodily strength of his son. After the birth of Bhima, Pandu desired more children. He told Kunti to practice austerities for 1 year, and he himself stood on one leg from morning till evening every day in rapt meditation, hoping to satisfy Indra, the king of heaven. Indra, being pleased with Pandu, came to him and said, I will give you, O king, a child who will be celebrated all over the three worlds. He shall destroy the impious and be the joy of those who are pious. He will be a great devotee of Lord Vishnu. Pandu then called for Kunti and told her to call the demigod Indra to beget another child. Kunti, following the order of her husband, called for Indra, and through her he begot a child that was to be the intimate associate of Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Upon the birth of this child there was a celestial sound from the heavens announcing, This child shall be known as Arjuna. He will be equal in bowmanship to the great Kartavirya, and in prowess he will resemble Lord Shiva. Invincible in battle, he will spread the glories of the Kuru dynasty far and wide. Acquiring all kinds of celestial weapons, he will win back the fortunes of your dynasty. After these prophetic words were heard, kettle drums rolled, and the demigods and the rishis showered the earth with flowers. The celebrated Pandu was overjoyed on the occasion and approached his wife with a desire to beget more children. However, before Pandu could speak, Kunti said, The wise do not sanction a fourth child even in a season of distress. The woman who has intercourse with 4 different men is called a prostitute, and with the 5th she is called a harlot. Therefore, O great king, as you are learned in the scriptures, please do not ask me to again beget children. After the birth of Kunti's first 3 sons, and also the birth of 100 sons to Gandhari, Madri, the daughter of the king of Madras, approached Pandu and spoke the following words. O great king, I have no complaint if you are not in favor of me. O sinless one, I also have no complaint that although I am senior to Kunti, I am inferior to her in station. I do not grieve when I hear that Gandhari has obtained 100 sons. This, however, is my great grief, that while Kunti and I are equal, I am childless. If Kunti could teach me to have children in the same way that she has begotten children, then I would be satisfied. Please ask her on my account." Pandu then approached Kunti and in sweet words asked her to teach the mantra to Madri so that she could also have children. Kunti readily agreed and told Madri, "Think of some demigod that you are favorable towards, and certainly you shall beget children by him." Madri thought of the twin Ashvin Kumar demigods, and within a matter of seconds they appeared before her. They gave her 2 children named Nakula and Sahadev, who were unrivaled on earth for personal beauty. As soon as they were born, a voice from the heavens spoke, "In energy and beauty, these 2 children shall excel even the twin Ashvins themselves." Thus 5 children were born to Pandu, and the great king felt fully satisfied to see the good quality of his children. They were each born at a year's interval apart, and as they grew, they became the favorite of the great sages in that region. Gandhari also gave birth to children. She received a benediction from Vyasadeva that she could have 100 sons. Sometime after Gandhari conceived, and she bore the pregnancy for 2 years without delivering. When she heard that Kunti had given birth to a child whose splendor was like the morning sun, she became angry and violently hit her womb. She then gave birth to a ball of flesh that was like a hard iron ball. When she was about to throw the ball of flesh away, Vyasadeva appeared on the scene. Without disguising her feelings, she said, "When I heard that Kunti gave birth to a child that was effulgent like the sun, I struck my womb. You have promised me 100 sons, but here is a ball of flesh." Vyasadeva replied, "O daughter of Subal, my words can never be futile. I have never spoken an untruth, even in jest. Let 100 pots full of clarified butter be brought instantly. In the meantime, sprinkle cool water over this ball of flesh." As the ball of flesh was being sprinkled with water, it separated into 100 pieces, each about the size of a thumb. They were then placed in the pots of ghee and covered. Vyasadeva told Gandhari that a child would be born from each of the pots. He then left for the Himalayan mountains. The first child born from those pots was Duryodhana. As soon as he was born, he began to bray like an ass. And hearing that sound, the asses, vultures, jackals, and crows uttered their respective cries. Violent winds began to blow, and there were fires in various directions. Duryodhana was born on the same day that Bhima was born. After the birth of Duryodhana, Dhritarashtra in great fear called for Bhishma, Vidura, and all the senior Brahmins and members of the Kuru house. He then spoke to them, "The oldest of the princes is Yudhisthira, and he shall become king. By virtue of his birth he has gained the kingdom. But what about this son born to me? Will he become king?" As soon as these words were spoken, jackals, crows, and asses began to howl frightfully. Vidura then spoke to the king, "O king, when these frightful omens are noticeable at birth, it is evident that this child shall be the exterminator of your race. Your prosperity is dependent on abandoning him, and if you decide otherwise, it will prove to be the destruction of the dynasty. You already have 99 other sons born to you, so let this one go. O king, do good to the whole world by casting away this child." When Vidura had thus spoken, all the Brahmanas agreed, but Dhritarashtra had not the heart to destroy this child. Within a month, all the 100 pots of ghee had produced a child, and in addition to these 100, Vyasadeva produced another pot in which a female child was born named Dushila. Also there was a Vaishya woman who used to serve Dhritarashtra very faithfully. By her the king begot a child named Yuyutsu, who was endowed with great intelligence. Thus 101 sons were born to Dhritarashtra as well as 1 daughter. In order of birth they were Duryodhana, Yuyutsu, Dushashan, Dushaha, Dushila, etc. All the 101 children became heroes and great chariot fighters. One day after the birth of his 5 sons, Pandu was wandering about in the woods with his wife Madri. It was the springtime and the flowers were in bloom, casting their scent in all directions. The birds like the parrot, the cuckoo, the cranes, and the peacocks were singing sweetly, and the bees were making their humming noises. Bewildered by the atmosphere, King Pandu became attracted to his wife, and forgetting the curse of the rishi, forcibly embraced her. Madri tried to resist the advances of her husband, but it was of no use. Impelled by fate, the great king, overwhelmed by passion, ended his life trying to enjoy the embraces of his wife. Embracing the dead body of her husband and weeping aloud, Madri called out for Kunti. Kunti heard the call and came to where Madri lay with Pandu. Seeing the dead body of Pandu, Kunti fell to the ground crying. She was overwhelmed with grief and chastised Madri again and again for not resisting the king. Madri told her all that had happened and how she had tried to stop the advances of Pandu. Kunti then said, "I am the oldest of his wedded wives, and therefore the religious right of Sati belongs to me. You must now take care of the children and see that they are properly raised." To this Madri replied, "Kunti, it is I who should enter the fire with our Lord. He had approached me for embraces, and his desires being unfulfilled, he has ascended to the heavens. Therefore I shall accompany him to the abode of Yamaraj to fulfill his desires. If I survive, I shall certainly not be able to raise your children as if they were my own. But you, O Kunti, shall be able to raise my sons as if they were your own. Therefore let my body be burnt with his." Kunti reluctantly agreed to the proposal. While lamenting greatly, they built a funeral pyre and laid the dead body of Pandu upon it. As the body burned, Madri entered the flames and attained the same destination as her husband. Thus ends the 5th chapter of the Adi Parva to the summary study of the Mahabharata entitled "The Pandavas Are Born." Chapter 6 of the Adi Parva. The Pandavas enter Hastinapur. After the death of King Pandu, the sages in that region gathered together and consulted amongst one another about the future of Kunti and her sons. The rishis decided that the Pandavas, along with their mother, should go to Hastinapur and take shelter of grandfather Bhishma and the Kuru elders. Accompanied by the sages and the Charanas, Kunti and her children appeared outside the city gates of Hastinapur. Upon hearing that Kunti was at the gate of the city along with her 5 children, the members of the Kuru court, headed by Bhishma, Dhritarashtra, and Vidura, went to greet them. The citizens of Hastinapur also came there to see the sons of Pandu. Everyone was struck with wonder to behold the godlike sages accompanied by the celestial Charanas. The sages then began to speak to the Kuru elders. "All of you know that the king of this world, Pandu, has been living in the forest as an ascetic due to the curse of a Muni. The curse has now taken its toll, and the great king has ascended to the heavenly planets. Here are his 5 children. The oldest is Yudhisthira, conceived by the controller of religion himself. He is the future king. The second son is Bhima, conceived by the demigod Vayu, and is the possessor of unlimited strength. The third son is Arjuna, conceived by the great Indra himself, and will humble the pride of all archers on earth. The last 2 children are Nakula and Sahadev, begotten by the Ashvini Kumar demigods by Madri. The birth, growth, and development of these sons of Pandu will give pleasure to all. King Pandu departed 17 days ago along with his wife Madri. The last funeral rites need to be performed with great honor, befitting a king of this earth." After speaking these words, the sages along with the Charanas disappeared from sight. Dhritarashtra then ordered Vidura in the following words: "O brother, let us perform the last rites for this king of kings, and also arrange for charity to be given freely to whoever is in need." The remnants of the body of Pandu and Madri were then taken in state to the banks of the Ganges, where the last funeral rites were performed. The ashes were then thrown into the Ganges. All the citizens, young and old, wept bitterly over the loss of their king, and thus passed 12 days in mourning. One day after the Shraddha ceremony had been performed, Vyasadeva approached Satyavati and said, "Mother, the days of happiness in the Kuru house have now set like the sun, and the days of darkness have now entered. The empire of the Kauravas will no longer endure. You should not be a witness to the annihilation of your race. Therefore enter the forest and fix your mind on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, the protector of all." Following the advice of her son, Satyavati along with Ambika and Ambalika entered the forest. When their meditation was complete, they entered the spiritual world. After the Pandavas were settled in the palace of their father, they began to grow up in the opulence that was due to great princes. Whenever Bhima was engaged in play with the sons of Dhritarashtra, his strength became apparent. Bhima proved superior in speed, striking objects aimed at, consuming food, and scattering dust. The son of the wind god pulled the sons of Dhritarashtra by the hair and made them fight with one another, laughing all the while. Bhima would seize them by the hair and, throwing them down, drag them along the ground. In his playful mood, Bhima would accidentally break their knees, their heads, and their shoulders. Sometimes, while swimming together, the second son of Pandu used to hold 10 of them at a time under the water until they were almost dead. When the sons of Dhritarashtra would climb in a tree to gather fruits, Bhima used to shake the tree until the fruits as well as the 100 sons of Dhritarashtra fell to the ground. Bhima would play with them in childishness, but he would never hurt them out of envy. When it was obvious that Bhima could challenge all 100 sons of Dhritarashtra single-handedly, Duryodhana began to make deceitful plans against him. He thought, "There is no person who can compare with Bhima in strength. He does not think twice of challenging my 100 brothers to combat. I will have to destroy him and confine Yudhisthira and Arjuna to imprisonment. Then I shall be the sole heir to the throne without hindrance." This mentality of Duryodhana is a typical mentality of a demoniac person. Lord Krishna speaks to Arjuna in the 16th chapter about this state of mind. Lord Krishna says, "The demoniac person thinks, 'So much wealth do I have today, and I will gain more according to my schemes. So much is mine now, and it will increase in the future more and more. He is my enemy, and I have killed him, and my other enemy will also be killed. I am the richest man, surrounded by aristocratic relatives. There is none so powerful and happy as I am. I shall perform sacrifices, I shall give some charity, and thus I shall rejoice.' In this way such persons are deluded by ignorance." Because Duryodhana was puffed up and arrogant, he had no appreciation for the spiritual qualities of the Vaishnavas. He was an offender against the Vaishnavas, and was thus meant for destruction. Possessed with the mentality described above, the wicked Duryodhana had a palace built on the banks of the Ganges that was just for sporting in the water. His plan was to invite the Pandavas to this house and feed Bhima a poison cake. When Bhima was unconscious from the poison, Duryodhana and his brothers would throw him in the Ganges. After the palace was completed, Duryodhana invited the Pandavas. "Let us go to the bank of the Ganges and sport in the water. We shall have a picnic and enjoy the scenery." Not understanding the evil intentions of Duryodhana, the Pandavas accompanied the sons of Dhritarashtra to the banks of the Ganges and entered the newly constructed palace by the water. They all sat down to a feast before swimming. Duryodhana brought Bhima a cake that was filled with enough poison to kill 100 men. That wicked youth, who spoke sweetly but whose heart was like a razor, continued to feed Bhima different kinds of food that were filled with poison. After the feast, the boys began playing in the water. Bhima became tired and fatigued from the poison, and rising from the water laid himself down on the ground. Seeing this, Duryodhana and some of his brothers bound him with ropes and threw him into the Ganges. He sank down to the bottom of that river, where the Naga kingdom is situated. The Nagas, or snakes, began to bite him by the thousands, and the poison from the cake was neutralized by the venom of the serpents. On regaining consciousness, the son of Kunti broke his bonds and began to kill the snakes that were biting him. The rest of the snakes fled and went to their leader Vashuki and told him what had happened. Vashuki happened to be related to Bhima through the wind god Vayu, and upon hearing of his presence he came to him and embraced him. They talked for some time about what had happened, and Vashuki, wanting to make Bhima very powerful to protect him from future attacks, offered the son of Vayu 8 bowls of nectar in which there was the strength of 10,000 elephants. Bhima drank 1 bowl in one breath, and after drinking all 8 bowls he lay down on a bed prepared by the serpents. Meanwhile the Pandavas and the Kauravas set out for Hastinapur, thinking that Bhima had left early for the city. The wicked Duryodhana was now glad that Bhima was dead, and he appeared very happy on the way back to Hastinapur. Yudhisthira, who was unacquainted with vice and wickedness, thought nothing of the matter. Upon entering the chambers of his mother, he inquired from her, "O mother, has Bhima come here early? I cannot find him anywhere. While swimming in the Ganges, he became tired and slept on the shore. After we finished with our playing, we could not find him. Has he come here early because of the fatigue of swimming?" Kunti became excited when she heard that Bhima was missing, and she said in alarm, "My dear Yudhisthira, I have not seen Bhima. He has not come here. Return in haste with your brothers and try to find him." After dismissing her son, she called for Vidura and inquired from him, "O illustrious Vidura, Bhima is missing. Today the boys went swimming in the Ganges, and they returned without him. I know that Duryodhana does not like him. This first son of Dhritarashtra is crooked, malicious, low-minded, and cruel. His only desire is to obtain the throne. I am afraid he might have killed Bhima, and this is saddening my heart." Vidura replied, "Blessed lady, do not grieve. Protect your other sons with care. If Duryodhana is accused, he might slay the other sons. The great sage Vyasadeva has said that all your sons will be long-lived. Therefore Bhima will surely return and gladden your heart." Vidura then returned to his abode, and Kunti, unable to shake her anxiety, stayed in her quarters. Meanwhile, Bhimasena awoke from his deep sleep after 8 days. The Nagas glorified him and tended to his needs. They spoke to him. "O greatly powerful Bhima, the nectar that you have drunk will give you the strength of 10,000 elephants. No one will be able to defeat you in battle. Please return home, for your mother is in deep anxiety because of you." The Nagas then dressed him in fine silks and ornaments and returned him to the palace by the river. Bhima ran with great speed to the city of Hastinapur. He entered the palace of his mother and bowed at her feet and at the feet of his elder brother. Kunti took her son on her lap and embraced him, and affectionate tears glided down her face. The other brothers gathered around and embraced him warmly. Bhima then began to relate everything that had happened. He explained how Duryodhana had tried to poison him, and how the wicked son of Dhritarashtra and his brothers had tied him up and threw him in the Ganges. He also explained how the Nagas had bit him, causing the poison in the cake to be counteracted. He then explained how he had been given 8 bowls of elixir of immortality, and how his strength had increased thousands of times. Yudhisthira then said, "Do not speak of this to anyone. From this day on we should protect one another with care. Under the guidance of Vidura, no harm can come to us." This was the beginning of many offenses committed against the Pandavas by the wicked Duryodhana. The Pandavas, along with their mother Kunti, were completely helpless. Therefore they had to take close shelter of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. In Kunti's prayers to Lord Krishna she states, "Vishanmahagne purushadarshanad asatsabhaya vanavasa kristradha mridhe mridhe nakamaharatrastrato dronyastratas chasma hare birakshita." Kunti said, "My dear Krishna, your lordship has protected us from a poison cake, from a great fire, from cannibals, from the vicious assembly, from sufferings during our exile in the forest, and from the battle where great generals fought. And now you have saved us from the weapon of Ashvatthama." The Pandavas and their mother were destined for political intrigues, but because they took shelter of Lord Krishna, they were protected in all circumstances. We can also follow in the footsteps of Queen Kunti and her sons by taking shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord whenever difficulties arise. Thus ends the 6th chapter of the Adi Parva to the summary study of the Mahabharata entitled "The Pandavas Enter Hastinapur." Chapter 7 of the Adi Parva, Dronacharya the martial teacher. While the boys were growing up, Maharaj Bhishma was looking for a suitable teacher to train them in the science of arms. One day all the heroic princes came out of the city of Hastinapur. They began to play ball and roam the forest areas in great joy. When the ball fell into a well, they all tried their best to retrieve it from the well, but found it impossible. As they were looking into the well, there appeared on the scene a Brahmin who had just finished his daily performance of Agnihotra. Seeing the princes unsuccessful, the Brahmin, whose name was Dronacharya, approached them. He was thin and effulgent due to his performance of sacrifice. He was dressed in white robes. Drona spoke to the boys. "Shame on your Kshatriya strength. You are born in the dynasty of Bharata and you cannot recover this ball from the well? Witness the power of my weapons." Drona took off his ring and threw it into the dry well. The ring landed on the ball, and taking a handful of grass, he chanted some Vedic mantras and turned the blades of grass into arrows. He then pierced the ring and the ball simultaneously. Piercing one arrow after another, he made a chain of arrows that came up to the top of the well. He then pulled the ball out of the well, and the boys stood watching, struck with wonder. The boys offered their obeisances to the Brahmana and spoke to him. "O great Brahmana, no one possesses such skill. Please tell us who you are and what we can do for you." Thus addressed, the Brahmana replied, "Go to Bhishma and describe my likeness and what you have just seen. He will tell you who I am." The boys then ran to Bhishma and explained to him everything that had happened. Maharaj Bhishma smiled and said, "This is Drona." He then went out of the city and greeted that best of the Brahmanas and brought him into the palace. In private he inquired from him, "Dear Brahmana, please let us know the reason for your arrival in the city of Hastinapur." Drona replied to the great Bhishma, "In my younger days I lived in the ashram of my teacher along with the Panchala prince Drupad. We made a close friendship and were always seeking each other's welfare. He would always tell me that he was the favorite of his father and that one day he would inherit the kingdom. Because we were close friends, he promised me that someday half his kingdom would be mine. After he finished his studies, he left for his own country. In due course of time, I married Kripi, the daughter of the sage Gotama, and begot a son named Ashvatthama. Because of poverty, I could not even feed my son milk, and therefore I went to the kingdom of the Panchalas to see my old friend Drupad. Entering the palace, I approached him, saying, 'O tiger among men, it is Drona, your old friend.' Drona became angry when he heard my words and derided me, saying, 'Your intelligence is of low quality, and that you, a poor Brahmana, are addressing me as your friend? My former friendship with you is for a particular reason. One of impure birth can never be a friend to one who is of pure birth. Friendships can only exist between persons that are of equal rank. There cannot be friendship between the rich and the poor, or between a coward and a hero. O simpleton, great kings can never have friendships with poor and luckless fellows like you. I do not remember ever promising half my kingdom. I will, however, give you food and shelter for one night.' Unable to tolerate his offensive words, I quickly left his kingdom with a vow to win half of all that he possessed. I have now come here in hopes of training up competent students who can conquer the pride of this king. I have obtained all the celestial weapons from Parashuram, the partial expansion of Lord Vishnu. Because I was a Brahmana, he bestowed upon me all his weapons." Thus addressed by Dronacharya, Maharaj Bhishma said to him, "String your bow, O great Brahmana, and taking the sons of Pandu and the sons of Dhritarashtra, make them your disciples." After Drona had been made the martial preceptor of his brother's children, Bhishma gave to Drona a suitable home that was furnished with all opulences. After Drona had been properly situated, he soon began to train the young princes. Drona taught the sons of Pandu and the sons of Dhritarashtra the use of many weapons, both human and celestial. Although the instruction given to them was the same, still Arjuna, the third son of Pandu, became the foremost of all students. His lightness of hand and skill were beyond compare. Arjuna became very devoted to Drona and always stayed by his side. One day Drona gave to each of his students a narrow-mouthed vessel for filling with water. However, he gave to his own son Ashvatthama a wide-mouthed vessel so that filling it quickly he could return to his father and receive special instructions. Arjuna came to know of this, and filling his vessel by means of the Varuna Astra, he would come to his preceptor at the same time as Ashvatthama. Arjuna's devotion to Drona and his strong desire to learn archery won the heart of Drona. It soon became apparent to everyone that Arjuna was the preceptor's favorite student. One day, Dronacharya told his cook, "Never give Arjuna food in the dark, nor tell him that I have told you this." However, one night Arjuna was taking food in his tent by candlelight, and suddenly a violent wind rose, blowing out the candle. Arjuna continued to eat, although it was dark, and while he was eating he thought, "If I can eat in the dark, why can I not practice archery in the dark?" Thus he began practicing archery in the night, and hearing the twang of Arjuna's bow, Drona came to him and embraced him, saying, "You are my foremost student, and I give you the benediction that there will not be an archer equal to you in the world." Thereafter, Drona began to teach Arjuna the art of fighting on horseback, on the backs of elephants, on a chariot, and on the ground. He instructed him how to fight with the mace, sword, javelin, and the dart. He instructed him how to use many weapons at one time, and how to fight with many men at one time. Hearing the reports of Drona's teachings, princes flocked to him by the thousands. Amongst them came a prince of the Nishidas named Ekalavya. By caste he was lower than a Shudra, and fearing that because he was a Nishida, who in time might excel his high-born students, he refused to accept him. Bowing to the feet of Drona, Ekalavya went back to the forest and made a clay image of Drona and began to worship it. He practiced with great devotion in front of this deity of Drona, and in due course of time all the science of weaponry became known to him. One day the Pandavas and the Kurus set out for the forest on a hunting excursion. They brought along a dog who could help them in their search for certain animals. When the dog was wandering about in the woods, he saw Ekalavya, the prince of the Nishidas, releasing arrows in all directions. The prince wore black garments and was filthy due to not bathing, as was common amongst the lower classes. He also wore matted locks on his head. Seeing this frightful sight, the dog began to bark. The Nishida prince, wanting to exhibit his prowess with the bow and arrow, shut the dog's mouth with 7 arrows. The dog then ran back to the Pandavas. When the princes saw the dog, they were struck with wonder, and immediately began searching the forest for the archer who had performed such a feat. They soon came upon an unknown archer, and seeing his grim appearance, questioned him, "Who are you, and who is your father?" Replying, Ekalavya said, "I am Ekalavya, the son of Hiranyadanus, the king of the Nishidas. Please know that I am a disciple of Dronacharya." The Pandavas learned everything about him and went back to Drona, telling him all that had happened. Arjuna thought that the Nishida prince had come to Drona in secret and learned the art of weapons. He said to Drona, "You have embraced me and told me that I would have no equal in archery. How then has this Ekalavya proved superior to me?" Reflecting on the proper course of action, Drona took Arjuna and went to the forest. There in the woods they saw Ekalavya dressed in rags and wearing matted locks on his head. When Ekalavya saw Drona, he approached him and offered his prostrated obeisances, touching his preceptor's feet. He then stood before his teacher, waiting for his command. Drona said to him, "If you are really my disciple, then give me my dakshin." Ekalavya was gladdened to hear the words of Drona and replied, "O my teacher, what shall I give you? Command me, for there is nothing I will not sacrifice for you." Drona then ordered him, "If you are really intent on making me a gift, then please give me the thumb of your right hand." Ekalavya was devoted to truth, and with an unflinching mind he cut off his right thumb and gave it to his teacher. When the prince tried to shoot again with the use of his right hand, he found that he did not have the same accuracy as before. One day Drona, the foremost of the martial teachers, called together his disciples to test their comparative excellence in the use of arms. He had placed an artificial bird on the top of a tree as the proposed target. He then addressed his students in the following words: "Take up your bows, aiming at the bird in the tree. Release your arrow and cut off the bird's head as I give the order." Drona then called up Yudhisthira and said, "Do you see the bird at the top of the tree?" Yudhisthira replied to his preceptor, "Yes, I do." Drona then asked him, "Do you see anything else?" Yudhisthira replied, "I see the tree, myself, my brothers, and the bird." Drona chastised Yudhisthira and said, "Stand by the side of the others. You are not fit to strike the target." Drona then repeated the experiment with Duryodhana and the other sons of Dhritarashtra, and the result was the same. He ordered them all to stand apart. When everyone had failed, Dronacharya called up Arjuna. He told him, "Fix your arrow to your bow and await my order. When I say so, cut off the bird's head." He then asked him, "Do you see the bird in the tree?" Arjuna replied, "I only see the neck of the bird." Dronacharya again inquired, "What else do you see? Do you see the tree, your brothers, or me?" Arjuna replied, "I only see the neck of the bird." With his hair standing on end out of ecstasy, Drona ordered, "Release your arrow." Instantly Partha released his arrow and severed the head of the false bird. Drona immediately embraced Arjuna to his chest and considered Drupad along with his friends as already vanquished in battle. On another day, Drona called for Yudhisthira and Duryodhana, and he spoke to them in the following words: "My dear Yudhisthira, please follow the instructions I give you. Go out among the citizens and find someone who is inferior to you. When you have found that person, bring him to me." Drona then said to Duryodhana, "Go out amongst the citizens and find someone who is superior to you. When you find that person, bring him to me." Both the students then left, and Drona returned to his quarters. At the end of the day, Duryodhana returned to his teacher and addressed him in the following words: "O my teacher, I have searched the kingdom for a person who is superior to me, but I have not found him anywhere. Having concluded my inspection, I have returned to your presence." Drona then dismissed Duryodhana. When the sun had set on the horizon, Yudhisthira arrived and offered his obeisances to his martial teacher. Drona then inquired, "Have you found someone of inferior quality?" Yudhisthira said, "I have searched all day, but I could not find anyone. However, towards the end of the day, I saw a Vaishya man drawing water from a well, and since it was Ekadasi, I thought to bring him to you. Just as I was about to arrest him, I saw that he fed the water to his animals. Therefore, finding no one with bad qualities, I have brought myself, for I am the only one who has faults." Drona then dismissed Yudhisthira, and reflecting on the qualities of the two princes, he concluded that Yudhisthira was the personification of humility, and fit to rule the people, whereas Duryodhana was too proud to be a pious king, and would ultimately be the cause of the destruction of the Kuru dynasty. Yudhisthira possessed all the qualities of a topmost Vaishnav. He was completely free from all envy, and was the well-wisher of all. He saw only the good qualities in others, and tried to help them advance in whatever way possible. He considered all others worthy of respect, and himself worthy of no respect. This is the teaching of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Trinadapi sunichena tarorapi sahishnana amanina mananena kirtaniya sadahari. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw on the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and ready to offer all respects to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name constantly. Because of Yudhisthira's humility, he was considered by Dronacharya to be a fit ruler. On the other hand, Duryodhana was only after his own interests. His only desire was for his own personal fame and material prosperity. It is unfortunate that in today's so-called advanced societies, the Duryodhana mentality has become prominent. The leaders only care about their own fame and position in society. Meanwhile, to support their extravagant lives, they heavily tax the citizens and ignore the fact that over 10% of the people are unemployed. How can a person who cares only about himself see to the welfare of others? On another day, Drona, along with his pupils, went to the bank of the Ganges to bathe in the sacred waters. When Drona had entered the river, an alligator seized him by the thigh. Although capable of killing the alligator, he called to his students, "Please kill this animal and rescue me." Instantly, Arjuna released 5 arrows that struck the alligator and killed it. This happened so fast that the others stood looking dumbfounded. The alligator released Drona and died within the waters. Drona then embraced Arjuna and said, "O best of all warriors, accept from me the Brahmastra weapon, which is the most powerful of all weapons. You must never use it against anyone who is inferior to you, or it might destroy the whole universe. This weapon has no equal in the 3 worlds. Keep it with great care, and use it only against an enemy who is superior to you." Drona then handed over that weapon to his disciple, and Arjuna received it with great respect. He then told the 3rd son of Pandu, "There will never be in this world a superior bowman to you. You will never be vanquished by any enemy, and your achievements will be written down in the history of the world." Thus Drona continued to instruct the sons of Pandu and the sons of Dhritarashtra. When he felt that he had given sufficient instructions to all the boys, he informed Maharaj Bhishma that he would soon collect his dakshin from all whom he had trained. Thus ends Chapter 7 of the Adi Parva to the summary study of the Mahabharata entitled Dronacharya, the Martial Teacher. Chapter 8 of the Adi Parva, the Curse of Parashuram. As stated in Chapter 5 of the Adi Parva, Kunti before her marriage to Pandu had conceived a child by the sun god Vivaswan. Due to fear from her relatives, she set the child afloat on the river Ganges. The child was picked up by Adirath, a well-known carpenter and chariot driver, and his wife Radha. They were attracted by the beautiful features of the child, especially his kavacha, natural golden armor, and kundala, earrings. He was given the name Karna. They raised the child very carefully for 16 years. On the 16th birthday of the child, his father had brought for him a new chariot and horses. Not feeling a desire to drive the chariot, he addressed his mother.
Today Father has brought for me a chariot and horses, but I do not feel the desire to drive a chariot. I feel the desire to hold a bow and arrow. I cannot think of anything else. Walking or sleeping, my thoughts are ever fixed on this desire. I want to be an archer and fight. Radha then explained to her foster son Karna all that had happened, how she had found him on the bank of the Ganges, wrapped in precious silk and floating in a basket. Hearing about his mysterious past, he was struck with wonder. After consulting with his mother and father, he took permission from them and left for the city of Hastinapur, desiring to find a martial guru. Karna's goal was to learn archery. He approached the great Drona, who was teaching the Pandavas in Hastinapur. Receiving an audience from him, he said, "My lord, I want you to teach me as your pupil. I want to learn the science of archery from you. I am the son of Adivat, a carpenter and chariot driver by caste." Drona did not like the idea of teaching archery to the son of a Sutaputra and sent him away. Karna was determined to learn archery. He decided to approach Parashuram, the destroyer of the Kshatriyas. Previously, Parashuram had annihilated the Kshatriya race 21 times because of the death of his father. Knowing that the great sage hated Kshatriyas, Karna decided to tell him that he was a Brahmana. Actually, Karna's foster father was born from the combination of a Brahmana and a Kshatriya. Therefore, he decided to approach the rishi despite the fact that he might be cursed or even killed. With this plan in mind, Karna approached the ashram of Parashuram, the incarnation of Lord Vishnu. He saw him seated in meditation. Upon his head were matted locks of hair, and his eyes were burning like fire. Falling at the feet of this awesome personality, Karna said, "I have come to you with a deep longing. Please do not send me away without granting me your mercy." Karna was weeping, and his body was trembling. Parashuram picked up Karna and asked him, "Are you a Kshatriya?" Karna said, "No, my lord, I am a Brahmana." Parashuram smiled at him and said, "I will certainly teach you all that I know. I will do it willingly." Karna's education began, and he spent many months in the ashram of the great sage. He forgot all the pains in his heart of his being the son of a carpenter. He even forgot the mystery attached to his birth. Karna was only interested in education, how to become a powerful warrior. He learned all the astras, even the Brahmastra and the very powerful Bhagavastra. He pleased his martial teacher in all respects. When his education was complete, Parashuram advised him, "Your presence in my ashram has brought me great pleasure. I have taught you all the knowledge that I know. You are very honest, fond of those who are elder to you, and you are eager to walk the path of righteousness. You must never use the knowledge that I have given you for an unrighteous cause." It was now noontime, and the sun was at its meridian. Feeling tired, Parashuram told Karna to bring him a roll of deerskin to use as a pillow. Karna replied, "My lord, please use my lap as a pillow. I can at least do this service for the foremost of men." Parashuram then laid his head in his disciple's lap and fell fast asleep. Karna was meditating on all that had taken place over the past year. He had lied to the great sage, telling him that he was a Brahmana. Would the reaction to this ever come upon him? His only desire was to acquire knowledge. The wise declare that the end justifies the means. He had not tried to commit any sin. Surely his small offense would be forgiven. As Karna was thinking in this way, he felt a pain in his right thigh. The pain became unbearable. He looked down to see what it was and saw a boar-like insect cutting into his skin. Karna could not stop it from penetrating his flesh. But what could he do? He did not feel right to awaken his guru. The insect bored right through his thigh, and blood touched the face of Parashuram. The great Brahmana awoke, and seeing the blood, exclaimed, "Where did it come from?" Karna answered, "It came from my thigh, my lord. While you were sleeping, an insect came and bit me on the leg. It caused me pain for some time, but I did not want to awaken you." Parashuram flamed up with anger. "You say this insect stung you, and you tolerated it? Why did you not get up and try to stop the pain?" "My lord," said Karna, "you were asleep, and I did not want to disturb your sleep. For this reason I have tolerated this pain." Parashuram was angered. How could a Brahmana bear so much pain? Only a Kshatriya could have done so. Have I, after all this time, taught my ostras to a sinful Kshatriya? I will never forgive you for this deception." Karna fell at the feet of his teacher, and tears flowed from his eyes, thinking that all he had learned would be futile. He held on to the feet of his guru and said, "Forgive me, my lord. You have been more than a father to me." A father should forgive the faults of his son. I am not a Brahmana, but then again I am not a Kshatriya either. I am the son of a carpenter named Adi Parva. I only wanted to learn the science of archery. I told a lie to you, but it was only to become your student. I have been devoted to you, and you are more dear to me than anything else in this world. Please show mercy to me and forgive me." Parashuram was furious. He was not moved by the prayers of Karna. The only thought in his mind was that this person had told a lie, and a Kshatriya is supposed to be truthful. He then remembered the Kshatriyas who had killed his father, and becoming angry, he cursed Karna. "You have learned the science of archery under false pretenses. I curse you that when you are in desperate need of an astra, your memory will fail you. You wanted fame, however, and I say that in after times you will be known as one of the greatest archers of all time." Parashuram then left and went back to his ashram, leaving Karna in tears. Wiping his tears from his eyes, Karna began walking aimlessly. He walked for days, thinking of the curse of the great rishi. Suddenly, what he thought was a deer flashed by him, and out of instinct he took an arrow from his quiver and shot the animal. However, it was not a deer, but a cow. Karna was horrified. He went to the Brahmana who owned it, and told him that he had shot the cow in ignorance. Karna tried to pacify him, but the Brahmana was not to be pacified. He cursed Karna, saying, "When you are fighting with your worst enemy, the wheel of your chariot will sink into the mud, and just as you killed my poor innocent cow when she was unaware of danger, you will also be killed by your opponent when you are least prepared for it." Karna was stunned that all these things were suddenly happening to him. Karna then understood that this was his karma. Otherwise, how could these events take place without his control? He took it that he was the chosen target of Providence, and how cruel she was. He remembered his mysterious birth and the stigma of his being a Sutaputra. He might have overcome it by being the student of the great Parashuram, but his teacher had cursed him and gone away. Now he had been cursed by a Brahmana. This was all his fate. He accepted it as such and went back to his home. His mother was proud when she heard that he had learned from the great sage Parashuram, but he did not tell her of the curse of Parashuram or of the curse of the Brahmana. After some time he heard of the tournament at Hastinapur and decided to go there to enter the competition. Thus ends the 7th chapter of the Adi Parva to the summary study of the Mahabharata entitled The Curse of Parashuram.